I knew something was wrong the moment the handheld terminal flashed that smug little screen. 18% minimum tip. Not suggested. Not recommended. Required. And the second I entered what I believed the service was worth, 12%. The waiter's face hardened like I'd insulted his ancestors. That moment didn't just ruin my night. It started a chain reaction that tore apart an entire restaurant and exposed a tipping scam that had been bleeding my town for years. Before I drag you through every moment of this bizarre tipping war and the revenge that changed everything, hit that like, subscribe, and bell. Because if you've ever felt bullied at a checkout screen, you're about to hear the story you've been waiting for. I didn't go to that new restaurant expecting trouble. Honestly, I just wanted a quiet night out after a hellish week at work. The place had been hyped online. Cozy, elevated casual dining, handcrafted meals, the kind of buzzwords that make you wonder whether the food is good or if the marketing is just loud. The moment I walked in, I could tell something was off. Not terrible, not a disaster, just that familiar vague sense of disorder. Like a house party where the host forgot guests were coming. A lone server rushed past me, carrying 3 plates on one arm and wearing a smile that didn't remotely reach his eyes. "Hey!" "Welcome. Sit anywhere that's open," he called over his shoulder before disappearing through the swinging kitchen door. No hostess. No greeting. Just chaos wrapped in the illusion of charm. I slid into a booth by the window, the vinyl seat still warm from the last person. My menu was sticky. The water took 12 minutes. The server, who I'd later know as Devon, dropped it off like he was delivering bad news. "Sorry, we're slammed tonight. Only 2 of us on," he said breathlessly. He didn't look me in the eye. At first, I didn't care. Everyone has bad days. Restaurants are hard. I'm not one of those customers who expect Michelin service from a strip mall bistro. But something about the atmosphere felt trained. Rehearsed, a kind of calculated scarcity. As if the whole place had been designed to stay just understaffed enough that every diner felt they needed to be extra sympathetic, extra forgiving, extra generous. The food, mediocre, not terrible, but nowhere near the prices listed. But that wasn't the problem. The problem came when I asked for the bill. Devon all but sprinted to my table, breathing heavily, punching in numbers on the handheld terminal. He held it out with both hands like a sacred offering. "There you go." He didn't let go. He waited for me to take it from him. His eyes flicked to the corner of the screen. That's when I saw it, the tip screen. No skip. No. Custom. No. Other amount. Just 3 preset options. 20%, 22%, my eyebrows pulled together involuntarily, and 18% minimum. For what? For being ignored for the better part of the meal. For waiting 20 minutes between drink refills. For cutlery that I had to ask for twice. I wasn't angry yet, just confused. I clicked, custom tip. The button was tiny, tucked away where only someone determined enough would find it. A manual keypad popped up. I entered 12%, not 0, not 2. 12%, what I genuinely felt the service had earned. I hit confirm. And that's when it happened. Devon's entire demeanor shifted like someone had flipped a switch inside him. His shoulders stiffened. His jaw flexed. His eyes narrowed, but not in a way he could openly get in trouble for. Not overt hostility, just that simmering, impassive, aggressive coldness that makes your stomach drop and your pulse tick up. He took the terminal back with one curt nod. "Thanks. Not, have a good night. Not, appreciate you coming in." Just that cold, clipped word. The kind of thanks people give when they're telling you to go to hell. He walked away, tapping on the terminal aggressively as if punishing it for my choice. I sat there stunned. How many people before me felt pressured to hit 20% just to avoid that reaction? How many just followed the script because they didn't want the look? Something inside me tightened. That creeping social expectation. Tip or be judged. Pay up or be shamed. I'd felt it before, but never this blatantly. I finished my drink, grabbed my jacket, and walked toward the door. As I passed the server station, I heard it. Devon whispering to the other server, a girl maybe in her early 20s. "Yeah, table 14 gave 12%. Whatever." The girl snorted. "Cheap." My breath stilled. Not because they were talking about me. I expected that. But because of the casualness, the assumption, the way they said it like they were entitled to more. Like I'd done something wrong. I left feeling strangely hollow. Normally, a bad restaurant experience becomes a story you laugh about the next day. But not this time. Something lingered. A pit in my stomach, a buzz of injustice under my skin, a feeling that I'd just witnessed something bigger than one server with a bad attitude. Later that night, scrolling on my couch, I saw a video. A smug influencer explaining the modern way to tippy. Just move the decimal and multiply by 3. If you're not tipping 30% these days, you shouldn't even be eating out. I felt my jaw tighten, my pulse tick up 30%. For what? For service that gets worse every year while expectations get higher. The comments were worse. People echoing the same cult like logic. If you can't afford the tip, stay home. Tipping is part of dining now. You're punishing workers by not tipping enough. My thoughts spiraled. What happens when people hear that and actually stop going out? What happens to the industry then? But the part that really broke something inside me, a stitch of memory from Spain, just a few months earlier, where tipping was rare, where appreciation was genuine, where a couple of coins earned you a grateful smile, not a silent judgment. Why couldn't it be like that here? Why had we allowed this creeping social surcharge to take over every interaction? Why did a simple meal come with a hidden moral test? Why did I leave that restaurant feeling like I'd done something wrong? The injustice simmered. All night, all week. But I wasn't prepared for what happened next. Because the story didn't end when I walked out that door. It didn't even end with me venting online. No, that restaurant. That tipping policy. The quiet scam happening behind the scenes. It went deeper, much deeper, and fate had a funny way of putting me right back in their path, right when they needed the wrong customer to mess with. By the time I discovered what they were really doing, by the time I realized how many people they'd been exploiting, my anger had turned into something else. Purpose. My revenge didn't start with rage. It started with the truth. And once I had the truth, I was going to burn their entire little empire down. If part 1 was the spark, part 2 was the gasoline. I didn't plan to return to that restaurant. Not after the frosty goodbye, not after the whispered, cheap, not after that lingering feeling that something was fundamentally wrong. But life is funny like that. A week later, I found myself driving home late from work, stomach growling, brain fried from back-to-back meetings. It was one of those nights where your motivation is so low that convenience becomes the only criteria for dinner. And the restaurant, the one with the 18% trap, just happened to sit right on my route home. I told myself I'd pick up something quick. No dining in, no terminal, no pressure. Just grab and go. It was only when I walked through the door that I realized fate had other plans. The restaurant was nearly empty. Just one guy at the bar scrolling his phone, and a couple finishing dessert near the back. The dim lighting made the place look even more deserted, like a stage after the actors had left. The hostess stand was still unmanned, of course. I approached the counter, cleared my throat, and waited. A moment later, the other server, the girl from last time, emerged from behind the bar. Her name tag said, Ava. She smiled mechanically, the kind of customer service smile that lived only from the nose down. Pickup? She asked. Yeah. Can I order something to go? Sure. What'll you have? I ordered a simple pasta, easy, quick, nothing extravagant. While she typed it in, she glanced up with just enough recognition to send a prickly feeling down my spine. You were here last week, right? She said. Her tone wasn't warm. It wasn't even neutral. It was cautious. Like she was probing. I forced a polite smile. Yeah. Oh. She didn't bother hiding the shift in her expression. Right. Okay. I felt the pit in my stomach again, but I brushed it off. Maybe she was having a long shift. Maybe she didn't actually remember. Maybe I was projecting. I paid. And then I saw it. The take-out tip screen, 18% minimum. Again, for pickup. Ava didn't hand me the terminal. She watched me use it. Her nails tapped rhythmically on the counter. Tap, tap, tap. No problem if you need a sec, she said lightly. But her eyes, they were stone. I hovered over custom tip. Her eyebrow twitched. I typed a due %, because this time I wasn't falling for the guilt game. Her smile vanished. She hit a button on the system a little too hard. Your order will be a few minutes, she said flatly. Have a seat. There was an emphasis on few that only someone who's worked in food service or suffered through passive aggression could recognize. I took a seat near the wall and tried to scroll my phone, but I could feel her gaze from across the restaurant, like heat on the back of my neck. 10 minutes passed, then 15, then 25. People who ordered after me got their food before me. A couple walked in, got seated, got drinks, got appetizers, got entries, and I still sat there, waiting. The longer I waited, the more obvious it became. This wasn't incompetence. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't even the kitchen. It was punishment. The non-tipper gets put at the bottom of the stack. I was about to stand up and ask when the kitchen door swung open and Devon, the waiter from before, stormed out carrying 2 plates. He stopped when he saw me, his lips parted slightly. Recognition, annoyance, a hint of satisfaction. He walked past without a word, but the message was clear enough. I checked the time again. Almost 35 minutes. Finally, Ava approached holding a brown paper bag like she was handing over a jury verdict. "Here you go," she said, voice clipped. Sorry for the wait. No, she wasn't. Not even remotely. But I took the bag, nodded, and walked out. I didn't say a word. No sarcasm. No comeback. Nothing. Because something had shifted inside me. That night, I opened the take-out container at home and froze. My pasta was burnt. Not overcooked, burnt. Black flakes, dry texture, bitter smell. Someone in that kitchen had either screwed up catastrophically or done it on purpose. Either way, my jaw clenched hard enough to make my teeth ache. I sat there staring at the ruined food, anger rising through me like a tide. Thick. Bitter. Heavy. This wasn't about a tip anymore. This wasn't about one server's attitude. This was about abuse of power. About a system built on social pressure and emotional manipulation. A system where saying no comes with consequences. The next morning, I woke up still stewing in it. And that's when the first real escalation hit. I checked my bank account while sipping coffee and saw an extra charge from the restaurant. A $3 in service fee, not listed on the terminal, not explained, not displayed anywhere. It had been quietly added after I left. My hand shook just enough to make a ripple in the coffee. I replayed the whole interaction in my head. Ava punching the buttons, her annoyed expression. That too, hard tap. They charged me a fee because I didn't tip. My chest felt hot. My vision narrowed. This wasn't a one-off. This was a practice, a violation, a scam. And the worst part, it was intentional enough that they hid it. I called the restaurant. Straight to voicemail, I called again. Same thing. Fine. I wasn't done. I checked their Google reviews, and suddenly everything clicked. Dozens of recent reviews mentioned unexpected fees added after paying. Tip screen auto selects 20% if you don't notice. Road staff if you choose custom tip. Pickup orders take forever unless you tip. Some reviewers even mentioned Devon and Ava specifically, all similar complaints. This wasn't a coincidence. This was a culture, a system, a machine designed to squeeze every customer for every cent possible and shame or punish anyone who pushed back. The more I read, the angrier I became. My pulse throbbed in my ears. My fingers tightened around my phone. And then, deep in the review list, something else appeared, a 1-star review that said, "Restaurant pockets part of the tip. Not all of it goes to staff." My breath stopped. Another review, "Owner manipulates POS system to skim tips. Ask the servers." My heart pounded. Another, "Staff encouraged to pressure customers to tip high. Manager takes a cut." The anger hit a boiling point. Not fairy, not loud, but cold. Focused. Someone higher up was orchestrating this. Someone was profiting from the guilt, the manipulation, the social pressure. It wasn't just bad service. It wasn't just rude staff. It wasn't even the hidden fee. It was exploitation, systemic, coordinated. Suddenly, everything made sense. The understaffing, the pressure, the entitlement, the passive aggression, the retaliatory wait times. They weren't symptoms. They were tools. The restaurant wasn't failing accidentally. It was succeeding on purpose, through coercion. And I realized something crucial that morning. Sipping lukewarm coffee while my pulse pounded in my throat. You cannot fight a system like this with a complaint. You dismantle it with truth. You crush it with exposure. You destroy it from the inside out. But I wasn't there yet, because the escalation wasn't over. That afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. "Hello," I answered. A pause. Then a man's voice, unfamiliar but dripping with false politeness. This is Marcus, the owner of the restaurant. I hear you had an issue with your bill. My blood ran cold. How did he get my number? I didn't leave my number anywhere, I said slowly. Oh, we have it on file, he said casually, for customer accounts and loyalty rewards. I had never enrolled in anything. He was lying, and his voicey, there was something predatory underneath the charm, something calculating. Well, he continued, I wanted to reach out personally because one of my staff mentioned our disagreement over tipping. My stomach turned to ice. This was not customer service. This was surveillance. Well, I said carefully, charging an extra fee without consent is illegal. A long pause. When he spoke again, his tone was different. Colder, sharper, stripped of the veneer. I'll refund the fee, he said, but I'd appreciate if customers didn't complicate things for my staff. Complicate? My grip tightened on the phone. And, he added casually, we keep notes on profiles, so let's make sure we don't have any more misunderstandings, okay? Notes. On profiles. I felt the hairs on my arms stand up. The owner of the restaurant was keeping files on customers who didn't tip high enough. This wasn't just a scam. It was a blacklist. A system of control. A way to intimidate people into falling in line. And that's when I made a decision if they wanted a war, I would give them one. Not out of petness. Not out of pride, but because no one, no business, gets to build a system that preys on guilt, punishes customers, steals tips, hides fees, and keeps secret profiles on people and walk away untouched. They wanted compliance. They were about to get consequences. Real ones. Ones they never saw coming. And it all began with one small step. A step that would lead to everything unraveling. My revenge plan started that same night. And by the time I was done, that restaurant would regret ever manipulating a single customer. Revenge doesn't start with fire. It starts with clarity. And that clarity hit me later that night as I sat in my dimly lit living room, the room smelling faintly of burnt pasta I'd thrown away hours earlier. The owner's voice kept replaying in my mind, calm, controlled, condescending. Let's make sure we don't have any more misunderstandings. That tone, that arrogance, that quiet threat buried under the guise of customer service. He was so confident, so secure, so certain his system was untouchable. Bad news for him. I've always been good at unraveling systems. I deal with complex operations at work every day. Patterns, inconsistencies, pressure points. I know how power works, how it hides behind procedure, how it masks itself under policy, and I know how to break it. But I also know better than to go in blind. So I started with the basics. I opened my laptop and began digging. First stop, the restaurant's website. It was small, poorly designed, and suspiciously vague. No staff bios, no listed policies, no explanation of service charges, no transparency at all. But what caught my eye wasn't what was visible, it was what wasn't. Their privacy policy link was dead. Their terms of use went to a blank page. And their loyalty program, where my profile supposedly lived, didn't actually exist. Which raised the question, how did they get my phone number? I leaned back, heart ticking in my chest. Only one answer made sense. They pulled it from my card information, which is illegal. Very illegal. I started reading public records. Business listings, tax filings, ownership transfers. It turned out the restaurant had changed ownership 3 times in the past 2 years. Why? The answer came when I looked into Marcus, the current owner. He had previously run 2 other restaurants. Both had closed. Both had similar reviews. Both had lawsuits. One was for withholding server tips. One was for charging unauthorized service fees. And this one chilled me, was for keeping customer conduct records? A pattern. A long, ugly pattern. But this time, he thought he was safe. He thought no one would connect the dots. He thought the little Canadian town he'd set up shop in was too quiet, too complacent to push back. And maybe it was. Until I came along. Employees always know the truth. They just rarely feel safe saying it. So I went back, not to confront anyone, not to make a scene, just to observe. I walked past the restaurant the next evening around 9 p.m. Late enough that the dinner rush had thinned out, but early enough that the place wasn't closing. The windows were foggy, but I could see inside. Devon stood by the bar, rubbing his temples, Ava leaned against the counter, arms folded tightly across her chest. They looked drained, worn out, stressed. Not like villains. More like people trapped in a system. I walked in casually, not to order food, just to ask a question. "Hey," I said, "was there a mix-up with my bill yesterday? I think a charge was added by mistake." Ava stiffened instantly. Her eyes darted toward the office door. Before she could speak, a deep voice came from behind me. "No mistake. Marcus." I turned slowly. He was taller than I expected, broad shoulders, slicked back hair, a calculated smile. The kind of smile that had no warmth behind it, only control. His presence sucked the air out of the room. He stepped closer. Too close. We spoke on the phone, he said, tone dripping condescension. I waived the fee. That should be the end of it. His eyes locked onto mine, and something flickered there. Fear. No. Arrogance. He thought I was small. He thought I was a nuisance. He thought he'd intimidated me into silence, which is exactly what made me smile. "Thanks for clearing it up," I said calmly. "Have a good night." And I walked out without another word, because what I needed wasn't confrontation. It was confirmation. That charge hadn't been a mistake. It had been deliberate, and he was bold enough to own it. The next 2 days became a quiet storm. I returned to the reviews, screenshotted everything, organized it by pattern, timestamp, and staff member. I combed through public forums, a thread on a local Facebook group talking about shady practices, a Reddit post from someone saying they were charged 25% tip without consent, a former host describing forced tip quotas, a server who claimed they were fired for refusing to pressure customers. I found a comment from someone who said the POS system had a default auto tip override that activated if customers hesitated too long. Everything pointed in the same direction. The restaurant wasn't just encouraging tipping. They were manufacturing it artificially, sacredly, illegally. But I wanted more. So I did something bold, risky, necessary. I created a fake profile using a virtual number, one that couldn't be traced to me, and texted Devin. The message was simple, vague, and believable. "Hey, I think you served me last week. Just curious, do you actually get the tips from the tablet? Heard something weird. I didn't expect a response." But a few hours later, he replied, "Depends." Why? My heart kicked. I typed, "Someone said the owner takes a cut." True. Silence for 2 hours, then talk about this, followed by "not safe." My pulse jumped. Not safe. What the hell was going on in that place? I waited until the next day. Then, at nearly midnight, another message from him. "Ooh, did you hear that from?" I replied honestly, "A few customers." And another pause. Then, "Yeah, he skims." I sat there staring at the screen, breath shallow. It was real, confirmed, tip skimming, hidden fees, customer profiling, retaliation for low tips, staff intimidation. I asked one more thing. "Why don't you leave?" His response came instantly, "Because he holds our last paychecks if we don't finish out the month." My stomach dropped. This wasn't just unethical, it was predatory, criminal. And in that moment, something inside me shifted permanently. This wasn't revenge anymore. It was justice. I reached out to the local workers' rights organization, the Consumer Protection Bureau, the Provincial Labor Standards Office, a journalist who had written about shady business practices in the area, 3 former employees I found through LinkedIn, and one person who had previously sued Marcus. I didn't make accusations. I didn't point fingers. I simply asked the right questions, and they answered. Piece by piece, the puzzle formed. Every response, every document, every testimony added weight to the case. The plan was coming together. A plan that would expose everything. A plan that would hold Marcus accountable. A plan that would free the staff. A plan that would show the entire community the truth. And the final step, the one that would pull every thread tight, was already forming in the back of my mind. But fate wasn't done escalating things, because just as all the pieces began aligning, just when the groundwork of revenge was nearly complete, something happened. Something I didn't expect. Something I wasn't prepared for. Something that turned my anger into pure, icy resolve. A notification popped up on my phone, a message from that same virtual number I'd used to contact Devin. 4 words, "His on to you." My blood turned cold. Devin followed it with, "Be careful." And before I could reply, blocked. The screen went dark, And I realized Marcus knew. He knew someone was digging, someone was watching, someone was connecting the dots he'd spent years hiding, but he didn't know who. Not yet. And that uncertainty, that panic, that was about to become the weapon that destroyed him, the message. He's on to you. Hit me like a punch to the chest. Not because I was scared for myself, but because it meant I was close. Really close. You don't panic when someone is miles away from the truth. You panic when you feel their breath on the back of your neck. And Marcus, he was panicking. He just didn't know where to swing yet. Good. Let him swing at shadows while I quietly built the hammer that would crush him. The next morning, I walked into a cafe across town, someplace neutral, somewhere no one from that restaurant would ever think to look, and opened my laptop. This was it. Time to pull every string. I opened the folder I'd been building. It had grown monstrously large. Screenshots of hidden fees, dozens of reviews mentioning retaliation, Devon's reluctant confession, former staff messages confirming withheld pay, a copy of a past lawsuit, a public labor complaint from one of his old restaurants, C. Social media posts hinting at tip manipulation and evidence of the dead privacy policy links. And, most importantly, a timeline of ownership transfers showing a pattern of exploitation. Every piece was small on its own. But together, they were devastating. A mosaic of corruption. Now I needed two final components, a first-hand insider willing to speak. A detonator. I had a feeling both were about to fall into place. That evening, while I was eating takeout and reviewing notes, my phone buzzed. A new message. Not from Devon. From an unknown number. You're the person asking questions about the restaurant. My pulse spiked. I typed deep. Who is this? 3 dots appeared. Then, it's Ava. I froze. Her, the one who glared at me, the one who seemed loyal to the toxic system. I hesitated, but typed anyway. What do you want? Her reply came instantly. To talk. Privately. I met her the next day in the back corner of a bookstore cafe. She showed up looking exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes, hair tied up messy, tension in every shoulder muscle. She didn't waste time. He knows someone is digging, she said quietly. Everyone is walking on eggshells. He threatened to fire us if we talked to anyone. But she swallowed hard. I can't keep doing this. I waited. She kept talking. You think this is just a tipping scam? It's worse. So much worse. My stomach tightened. What do you mean? She took a shaky breath. Marcus doesn't just skim tips. He finds us. Charges us mistake fees if we mess up an order. Takes money from our pay for walkouts. If someone leaves a low tip, he makes us write a report. If we complain, we lose shifts. And this was monstrous. And the customer profiles. I asked. She nodded. They're real. There's a whole spreadsheet on his office computer. Color-coded. Red means problem customer. He makes us prioritize high tippers, delay low tippers, and sabotage anyone who doesn't play along. My skin crawled. What about the loyalty program? I asked. There isn't one, she said flatly. He just pulls phone numbers from the card processor. Illegal. Unethical. Predatory. She wasn't done. And the worst part, he keeps our last paycheck hostage if we try to quit. Says it's for processing or inventory reconciliation. Most people don't fight it. My hands curled into fists under the table. So why tell me? I asked. Her eyes filled with something between fear and hope. Because someone finally cared enough to look. And because Devon told me you have proof. Enough to blow this place open. I nodded slowly. I do. She exhaled shakily, relief visibly washing over her. I want out, she whispered. Help us. I leaned forward. I'm going to. But I need everything you can give me. And she did. She handed me photos of the customer blacklist, spreadsheet, screenshots of messages from Marcus threatening staff, when a copy of the mistake fee, deductions, a staff schedule showing deliberate understaffing, a video clip, shaky but usable, of Marcus yelling at employees about better forcing tips, and the smoking gun. A picture of the POS system settings showing the hidden auto, tip override feature. My breath left me. This was it. This was enough, more than enough. We sat in silence for a moment before she looked at me and said, Please, don't let him do this to anyone else. I nodded. I won't. That night, I crafted the final blow. I organized every piece of evidence. labeled everything, created a detailed timeline of abuses, extracted quotes from staff, highlighted illegal practices. Then I sent it, all of it, to the Regional Labor Board, the Consumer Protection Agency, the Provincial Workplace Standards Office, the Tax Authority, the Local Business Compliance Inspector, the credit card processor, and the journalist who had been waiting for this exact kind of story. I didn't send it anonymously. I sent it proudly. With my full name, let him come. By morning, the fire had started. By afternoon, it was blazing. By evening, it was an inferno. The fell out. It hit him from every direction. A labor board aid. They showed up at the restaurant unannounced, interviewed staff, demanded payroll logs, and confiscated his computer, Taike Investigatoires. Apparently, Marcus was also underreporting cash tips. Surprise. The hidden service charges alone triggered a massive investigation. Using customer phone numbers without consent. Immediate violation. They froze his merchant account. No card payments, no revenue. The journalist published a scathing expose with every detail, every screenshot, every pattern of abuse. The story spread fast, from local Facebook groups to regional news. People who had been abused by the system for months came forward. Hundreds of comments, stories of retaliation, receipts with unexplained fees, staff describing the hostile environment. Marcus tried to put out fires. He threatened lawsuits. He denied everything. He blamed rogue employees. He claimed the evidence was fabricated. But it was too late. The public had seen the truth, and Ava and Devon. They both quit the same day the investigations hit, because the labor board ensured they'd get every stolen dollar back, every withheld paycheck, every illegal deduction. By the end of the week, the restaurant was empty. No customers, no staff, no merchant account, no reputation. By the end of the month, closed, permanently. A sign on the door read, "Due to unforeseen circumstances, we are ceasing operations." Unforeseen, not by me, and not by anyone who knew the truth. A month later, I ran into Marcus in the grocery store of all places. His face was gaunt, eyes sunken, energy gone. He stared at me for a long moment before saying, "You destroyed me?" My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I just said, "No, you destroyed yourself." I just turned on the lights. He swallowed hard, eyes burning with resentment and fear. "You'll regret this," he muttered. I stepped closer. Maybe. But hundreds of people won't. He had no response. Because he knew it was true. I walked away without looking back. The town felt different afterward. Safer, more aware, more vocal about tipping manipulation. Ava found a job at a better restaurant. Devon moved to a cafe where tips weren't skimmed. Customers stopped feeling guilty for choosing custom tips. People started calling out predatory practices elsewhere. And I felt a strange calm, not triumph, not ego, just justice. The kind of justice that comes after being underestimated, dismissed, and pushed too far. Because some people learn the easy way. Marcus learned the hard way, and the industry around him. It learned something too. Never underestimate the quiet customer who refuses to be manipulated. They might just be the one who takes down your entire empire. When the dust finally settled, long after the investigators left, long after the restaurant shut its doors, I realized something strange. I hadn't just exposed a corrupt restaurant. I had exposed a system built on guilt tipping, on manipulation, on exploiting staff, on punishing customers for saying no, on making honesty feel like an inconvenience. People started noticing similar patterns everywhere. The auto gratuity on self-checkout, the 20% tip prompts at coffee counters, her predatory pressure on workers, hidden fees masked as service charges. The businesses treating generosity like obligation. My story didn't stop with one restaurant. It lit a fuse. The video of the confrontation went viral. People shared their tipping horror stories. Workers shared their fear of speaking up. Customers finally realized they weren't imagining the manipulation, and businesses, they scrambled. Some removed auto tips. Some fixed their POS prompts. Some published transparent tip policies. Some trained staff on ethical practices. A few even reached out to me privately, saying, "Your video made us rethink everything." I never expected to start a conversation this big. But the truth is, every movement starts with someone who refuses to stay silent. I'm not the same person who walked into that restaurant day. Back then, I was tired, stressed, just trying to enjoy a quiet meal. But when I saw something wrong, really wrong, something inside me snapped into place. Not anger, not ego, but clarity. The moment you realize you don't need permission to confront injustice. You just need courage. I learned that your voice, yes, your voice, can change more than you think. You don't have to be loud. You don't have to be influential. You don't have to be fearless. You just have to care and act. Even if your voice shakes, especially when your voice shakes. If you've watched this far, thank you. But I want you to take one thing from this story. Never feel guilty for setting boundaries. Not in restaurants, not in business, not in life. Your money is yours. Your time is yours. Your dignity is yours. Tipping is supposed to be a choice, not a punishment. And if a business tries to use guilt, pressure, or manipulation to squeeze more out of you, you have every right to walk away or speak up or expose them. Because when enough of us refuse to play along, the whole system changes. If this story opened your eyes, if you've ever felt pressured by tipping screens, if you've ever been treated unfairly for choosing custom tip or no tip, then do 3 simple things. Like, not for the algorithm, but because it tells platforms this message matters. Comment your tipping experiences. Let people know they're not alone. Share this video. Send it to a friend, a coworker, someone who needs to hear this. Because this isn't just my story. It's everyone's story. And together,